Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Ellen at Sisters 3 Farm, and today I want to show you how you can spot dye. Spot dye is a very easy way to get into dyeing and has fabulous results. Whether you want to dye or you just want to watch someone dye, that's entirely up to you. When you dye, you have to take into account that you need a lot of things, a lot of items, and we'll go through them as we dye. One of the first things that you're going to need when you're doing any kind of dyeing is I have my big kettle that I can put a yard of wool in, or a half a yard. And today we're going to be dyeing half a yard. And so I have a big kettle and I fill it with water. The next thing you're going to need besides that kettle for spot dyeing is the wetting agent. Remember, we talked about wetting agents in previous videos, and this is the one that I prefer, which is Synthropol. But don't forget, you can use other wetting agents, and like this, and some Lemon Joy. So those are things that you could use as wetting agents, but really the Synthropol is the best. You're also going to need to have a measuring cup. You're going to need glass mason jars that are used exclusively for dyeing. You can't use them ever again for doing food. Then you need to have you have those. We need citric acid or vinegar. You need to have your countertop covered, or some people that dye all the time have a dye kitchen. I use my kitchen, but I cover my countertop. You need to have a casserole dish, at least 9 by 12. Mine's like a big lasagna pan. You need to have a kettle with boiling water. I'm trying to think what else. I think that might be it. Oh, I also use my gloves. I always make sure I have gloves. These are Bluettes, and you can use these and put your hands in very, very hot water. So those are also needed. So today I've decided I'm going to dye some green wool for a friend of mine that needs to have a spot dye to do some grass that has some fall look to it, some leaves on there, and we're going to see how this turns out. Today I'm also using Pro Chemical dyes, and what I do in order to stay organized is I take my glass jars and I put my dye, whichever one's going to go in there, because sometimes even on spot dyes you may put more than one dye into a jar, but I'm going to just put them all in front, and this way when I go through and doing it, I understand what I'm doing and I'm following a recipe. So the recipe that I'm following today is one that's, I kind of winged it. So let's take a look and see my spoons. Get those all organized. All right. So they come in gradations. The smallest is 101 28ths. I'm looking for my 1/8, which is here. Here's my 1/8. So I'm going to do 1/8 of 729. And what you should do in between each dye, if you don't want to contaminate your dye, is, I forgot, you need some salt, table salt. And you wash out your measuring spoon with the table salt. It gets off any excess dye. Then I'm going to do forest green. Let's see. And that one I want to do, here we go, some of this, 1/16. All right. Then I'm going to do, let's do some yellow, which is, let's do another one of these. And yes, I'm not giving you my exact measurements because I think those things are things that you need to work with someone with closely, perhaps take dye lessons, perhaps pay for some lessons, because I think it's important. But yes, you can venture on to other YouTube videos. You can go to stores and purchase dye books and get recipes. I think that's important. That's another reason why I don't give exact measurements in the videos, is because I want you to go out there and I want you to look for books and I want you to experiment and try things. Oh, so where am I? Leaf green. Let's do another 1/8. All right. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of this dye when I do it, but we're going to add, now we're going to, I have my boiling water over here, which I boiled, and we're going to put it in 1 cup of boiling water. And actually, I don't even have to do a whole cup, because this is going to be a spot dye. So let's do a half in all of them, just because this is what's going to, the hot boiling water is important because it really dissolves all of the dye granules and disperses that into the water. I have wooden chopsticks that I have that are dedicated exclusively to stirring. And what I do is I stir it and I look to see that it looks like it's pretty good. I don't see any crystals there. Now these are all going on the same wool, so to me it doesn't matter if I put my chopstick in a green and then I go into the yellow, because it's all going to end up in the dye. And I mix it pretty good. Let's do this one. I don't see it. Now, when you're doing a spot dye and you're doing it in a pan, what we're going to do is make sure that we have enough water. So we don't want to burn the wool in the oven. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to add, you want at least a total of, say like 3 cups of water in your pan. So I'm going to add another half cup. Now, I actually like using vinegar in this particular instance because I want this to not absorb or dye too quickly. If you want very distinctive spots, you would add your citric acid crystals. But I'm going to add vinegar today because I want it a little softer, and it takes a little bit longer for the dye to catch into the wool when you're using vinegar. So hang on, I'm going to grab my vinegar. So I've got my vinegar, and now I'm just going to add like a 1/4 cup. 1, 2, and yes, I just kind of eyeballing it, but it's about a 1/4 cup. A lot of people dye by eye. The reason I like recipes is because when you dye by eye, you often can't reproduce the wool that you've just dyed. And what happens if you run out? Well, yeah, you could add other similar wools to it, which is always a good thing. It makes a really nice design. But I like the recipes. I like doing a recipe. I usually write it down. For you today, I'm not, but I will afterwards. And write it down so that way if you want to reproduce that particular dye, wool dye recipe, you're going to be able to do it. So keeping a dye book is essential. Now, I'm going to take my wool. That's been in the wetting agent, and this one has been soaking for 3 hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to wring it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of gather it up like a Roman shade, an accordion, that kind of thing. All right? And voila, we're going to put it over into our casserole dish. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. So here we go into our casserole dish. And it's going to be all wrinkly, smushy, and it looks like this. Can you see that? And I think I may have to change the camera angle for you, so please be patient. Okay, so this is the casserole dish with a ½ yard of natural wool. I have my dyes off to the side, so that way they're not in the way of seeing what's happening. And what I'm going to do is, I have measuring spoons, of course something else to add to your list, that are just for this, and I bend it a little bit at the angle. There we go, a little angle there. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your first dye, and we're going to go across. And what I like to do is you just go 3 across. So just keep an eye on this. All right, there's 1. Now in the next one, I'm going to go through here and do 2. And we're going to take the next one, and we're going to start looking for other white spots. And then I'll show you what we do next. So there's a little bit of a method, but at this point, you just really do want to start covering your white. At this point, I actually like to put on my blue gloves and give it a good squish, because I don't, for this one, I don't want really distinctive dots. I want this to kind of start blending. And you can see, and I kind of play with it a little bit. So you don't have to. I just like to look and see, where have I missed? Do I have any major white spots? And I move it around, and then let's go back and do a little bit more. And I'm going to make, oh, here we go, a few more spots here and there. And the more you spot dye, the more you're going to learn how to manipulate the wool and the dye formulas, and you're going to see how they interact. A good place to start too is, if you're fantastic with the color wheel, you can certainly, I kind of like this the way it is, so I may stop there. Although I think I like the green. Where was this one? Let's see. Ah, there we go. Rather than the blue-green. Let's do a little of that. I kind of like that. Yep, I like that. But we have a little bit of a white area over here that I don't like. So let's add a little more of that. That's the blue-green. Here's this kind of green. All right. To me, this looks pretty darn good. Oops, it may be right over here. I like that. And I have plenty of dye left over because I like this. But what I'm going to do is I have another half a yard in my pot. So I'm going to get another pan and I'm going to do this. But let me show you that this doesn't have a lot of water in it. So that makes me a little nervous. So I'm going to add some more water in there. So this way, while it's steaming in the oven, I don't have to worry about it all evaporating. So what do I do next? I get aluminum foil and I cover the whole thing and I cook it in the oven at 325 for about 50 minutes. And we'll come back later and we'll take a look. Hi. So after the wool came out of the oven, what I do is I let it cool down completely. Then I place the wool into my washing machine and I put it on the rinse and spin cycle. After it's rinsed and spin, I put it in the dryer with 3 dryer balls and just dry it until it's dry. You can put it on the cotton setting. I think it makes the wool feel really nice. While that's happening, I don't want you to forget to clean up your workspace. Put all of your dedicated tools away, somewhere where no one else is going to use them, and then I use bleach to dye my jars, and I wipe down my counters. And now I'd like to show you the wool that we did today. So hang on. So this is the wool we did together. I think it came out pretty darn nice. Let's look at the other side. Pretty good, I like it. Looks a little different to me than it does on the camera. My iPhone does a pretty good job, but the colors aren't always true. And then with the leftover dyes, I decided to put a little more yellow in there. And you can see I've got some nice yellow spots and some darker areas. So when that hooks up, when both of them hook up, I think they're going to come out pretty darn nice. This one's a little more green-blue. I could see that would be great for some pine trees, shadows, grass, anywhere. So I hope you've enjoyed this dye lesson. I would encourage you to leave comments or questions. If you like it, you can certainly visit my Patreon site and chip in some money, or you could go to my Etsy shop and purchase some wool, or you can just see me back here next week, and I look forward to seeing you. So, happy hooking. Bye.